Doug is a former wild child who turned his life to the Lord. So can we welcome Doug tonight?
Where's this guy at? Because I came from Chapman and I brought food and stuff over here. I can't wait all night. So I'm going to have to go ahead and take off. This guy, I don't know. Is he not coming?
You know,
What, you said he was the judge?
he is. You think he'd be more responsible,
Let me just take
actually.
that. Can I do that?
Please
Would it
do.
be all right?
I mean, we've got this hour, so you might as well.
Let me just fill in for this guy. If he shows up, I'll get out of the way. Well, he left the coat, so it feels pretty good. Thank you guys for being here. Now, my name's Doug Thompson, and those things that were said, those were true, and I was a wild child. Now, let me see who I'm talking to in here. Are you guys volunteers to help other people who are going through their walk in life? Is that what it is? All of you are? Okay. Okay. So now as I'm going through this, if you have questions, you just put your hand up and let's deal with it as we're going while it's fresh in your mind. I'm a judge, and let me give you an example. The last speaker was fantastic. She did an awesome job. And here's what I found. This is what I found. I got all these gray hairs. And so here's what I found in this situation. I had an old man one time tell me he came in to see me to have me do a will, and he was getting near his end of time. And his name was Bernard. He was a pharmacist. And we got talking, and he said, "Doug, what's your philosophy of life?" And before I got a chance to start talking, he said, "Let me tell you about mine." And then he went on to tell me, he said, I've always had this philosophy about you get on the ladder. And I said, well, tell me what that means. You guys on the camera, what's you guys' names?
Timothy?
Timothy?
Yep.
Jonathan.
Say it again.
Jonathan.
Jonathan. Okay, I will move around a lot. The cool part about it is I'm the president of BDS Productions. We have television shows and all kinds of things. So I can move around a lot. You'll have to adjust.
Okay. We've got it.
Now, as Bernard told me about this story, and I listened to him, but here's the story. And as you guys are dealing with people that are going through many things, sometimes I have found some people, their only crime is they were born into a very dysfunctional family. Last night I was at a meeting in Clay Center for a ministry group that I'm on called Great Awakenings. And there was a speaker before I spoke, and she got up and she told this story. And there wasn't a dry eye left in the place when she got done. She got up and she said, at the age of 2 to the age of 12, I was my dad's mistress. Can you imagine? Can you imagine at the age of 2, a little child like this, and she was used as a sex toy. And that's what she had to go through, on up till the age of 12. Caused problems for her? You bet it caused problems for her. And as I was taking Bernard's story and I was listening to him, here's how simple it is. And I use this in the courtroom lots of times. I'll say, you know what? If you're standing in the bottom of the septic tank, you're standing in the you-know-what. That's where you're standing. And somebody lowers the ladder in. You can either back away from it, I don't want to get near that ladder, or you can get on the ladder. And it doesn't matter where you start. If you get on the first rung of that ladder, and then you start moving up, and you slip and you fall, and you land right back in the sewage, then get back up, and get on that ladder. Get on that first step, and then just keep moving up. Don't look down, you look up, and you look up, and you find your way out of that. Many times there isn't anybody else can do it for you, but you know who you lowered the ladder in, don't you? The only one who can lower, and that's the Lord. And just like the last speaker said, I have found if you can't base your relationship on being solid with the Lord, I don't know how you make it. And as I talk to people, I oftentimes ask this question here. Anybody in here know anybody that's still alive that was born in 1900, 1910, 1920, 1930? Nobody yet? That would be, you got some that were born 1930 or before, right in that time frame. Well, what I can glean from that is one thing is very clear. There are two types of people. Those people who are dead, and those of us who will be dead. People have no choice there. We're all going to expire. We are all on a journey in life. from the beginning to the end. And I can guarantee you, I was you guys' age, and it went by like that. Just like that. That's how fast it goes by. And then pretty soon you're saying, man, I'm like really old. Like, what happened? And then that's the way that it goes by. But the bottom line is, all of us are going to die. We can't change that. But there's two things that can happen after we die. You have two choices. One, you can say, I have nothing to do with the Lord. Don't want a thing to do with the Lord. And you know the destination from there. You'll go to hell. There is no middle ground. I have people say, I don't care about all that religion. No, I'm just not going to be into it. Well, what's your choice? Because there's no, I'm standing on the stage, I'm on the sideline. There is none of that. It's not there. It's one way or the other. You either accept the Lord or you don't. And if you don't, there is an eternity in hell. And if you accept the Lord will take you. He'll take you at any time. Any time He'll take you. I have people who, when they come to see me, or sometimes I will have written wills for them, and I'll go up to see them, and they're on their deathbed. And many times people are, I hope I'm there. I hope I'm there. Or I want to make that confession. I want to make that confession now. And people do that. And that's good. And the Lord will take them. But sometimes you never get the chance to do it. I can remember being a young kid. I said, I like all this Jesus stuff. That's a good idea. But I want to do it on my deathbed. I'll wait until then, and I'll have a blast all the way up until then. And then I'll do it on my deathbed. Well, as I got a little bit older and got a little maturity and realized many things about it, then I realized that wasn't much of a plan. That wasn't a plan, because sometimes it happens like that, and it's over. It is over, and there isn't anywhere else to go with it. So what the pharmacist told me about getting on the ladder, and I use that a lot. I will use it a lot. And when I'm the judge, there's only a certain number of things I can say in the courtroom. And sometimes I can't go too far, or I'm not going to be the judge in the case, or any other cases. So I have to temper my words. You guys will be in a position to help a lot of people in the courtroom. Here's a very simple example that I use. This one is just so simple, but it applies. Would you please stand? Yes, would you stand? And would you stand? Thank you. And ma'am, would you stand? Yeah. Yeah. And ma'am, would you stand? No, behind you. Thank you, but sure. Okay. Now I want you to picture this for a minute. It's called center circle fire. And what it is, this right here, this is the center circle. Behind me, there's other people that are standing. Drug habit, horrible drug habit. Alcohol problem, can't function. You can be good for a few days, you don't show up for work. Sex addiction. Every boyfriend that winks, you're with him. Thief, stealing, can't trust you on the job, can't do any of those things. And I can go right on around the room with these other things. And then I can say, this is the center circle, right here. This fuels all of these things right here. This is what fuels it. And many times in our society now, we run over here. Let's help you with that drug addiction problem. So we run over here, we stomp on that fire, and we put it out. Get that drug problem away. And uh-oh, this one's flaring up. And we run back over here. And now we address this fire back here. Thieving. Can't keep a job because of this. And so we run over and we stomp this fire out. And then we come back over here. Here's the sex problem. And we run back over here and we deal with this. And we come back over here to the alcohol problem and the other circles that are around. And we wear ourselves out with our financial resources, the good people like you folks that say, I want to make a difference, I want to do this, and you get wore out because I'm frustrated. I helped her, but now this person needs help. And I'm running over here. And I just constantly, and I don't feel like I'm making any difference at all. None whatsoever. Because the center circle is feeding this. And it feeds it for a variety of reasons. It's a moral weakness. I have a moral weakness that leads me into all of these situations. And if I base my foundation upon Jesus Christ, then this becomes under control. As soon as the center circle fire is controlled, the next problems go away because I no longer have the interest in the drug. Don't need the alcohol. Don't even bother with it. I figured it out on the sex. Leave those types of people alone. I'm looking for something different than that. I don't steal from them. I'm one of the best employees they've had. And you can go on around here. And once you get the center circle fire contained, that puts it all out. Otherwise, you will all exhaust all of your resources. Thank you, folks. You can sit back down. And that's what happens with this. And I use this a lot, the center circle fire, as I'm talking to people in the ministries. A while back, I had the opportunity to go out to Ellsworth and talk to the prisoners. And some of them I had put there. And so when I went out and we gathered at the place called the Spiritual Life Center. And I said, how long am I speaking, chaplain? And he said, 3 hours. 3 hours. Okay. So I got up and I started talking. I said, let's get a couple of things out of the way. I'm an attorney. Boo! I'm a judge. Boo! And I said, and I'm a sinner. Yay! And so we started talking. I said, you know, I've been just like every one of you people in here. And I have been just like you folks in here too. Everybody in this room has a story. And if I took time to interview and we talked about it, everybody in this room has some sort of a story. You're no different than me. Everybody has a story. And if we started talking about it, tears would begin to flow from you. Well, at the prison, when I was at the prison, we started talking about it. And I said, let me see if I can understand some things. Some of you I have put in here, yeah? And I had it coming. And people will sometimes say, you put me in jail. And I said, you're wrong. I didn't put you in jail. You put yourself in jail. All I did was the only result that was left to be done. I didn't put you there. But when I was talking to those prisoners, the tears were flowing because I said, let me see if I can make a guess here. Let me see. You got parents. One of your parents is gone. Your other parent will have nothing to do with you because you have breached that trust repeatedly. Every time that mom has tried to come in and help you to do something, you burned her. You burned her every single time. And that's happened. And let me see about you. Let me see about you. You have a wife that said she wanted to stay faithful to you while you're in here. But you know what? She found out. She found out that you weren't faithful to her before you even got here. And she's moved on. And your heart's broken because you know you screwed up big time. You don't have a relationship with your son. And you know why you don't have it? Because you abused him. You smacked him and you abused him. He doesn't want anything to do with you. And everybody in here has some sort of a problem with that. And that's what I talked to at the prison with them. And the tears were flowing down. And we talked about it. And I said, you know, it's the center circle fire. There's only one who can forgive you and restore those relationships. Your mom will do that, maybe and maybe not. But the center circle fire, God will love you no matter what. He will love you. And He will open the doors. I went back at Christmas time for their event out at Christmas. One of the guys that I talked to, the example that I just used there, he had burned the bridges with his mom. And so as I talked to him the first time I was out there, I said, tell me about your family. He went through and he told me, and I said, most people have a mom now. Do you have a mom? Yeah. What's your relationship? I write letters to her now because I'm not the same guy I was before. But she doesn't answer my letters. I burned the bridge. And I said, keep writing the letters. Keep sending the letter. That's the only thing you can do. And the chaplain contacted the mom and said, we're having a deal at Christmas. If you wanted to come out. And I don't think I do want to come out. She was so hurt by him. And over a period of time, she said, okay, I'll come out. I got to be there when they were there. He was seated just like you are here. And his mom came into the back of the room. And she was very guarded because she had been burned to where she just said, it's easier for me just to not to have anything to do with it. But I'm here. And so we get to talking and his mom comes up. And I said, this is your son. You know him, of course. Yeah, I know him. He's got something he wants to tell you. The tears are just rolling down his face. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all the things I did to you. I'm sorry for every time that I cheated you, every time that I lied to you, every time I stole money out of your purse, every time I did any of those things. I am sorry. I'm not the same now. Tell her why you're not the same. Because I have found Jesus. He's forgiven me. He's forgiven me. I don't know if he'll ever get out of prison. He's there for quite a while. But the important part is he found the Lord. And I guarantee you, the Lord loves him. And the Lord loves all of those people into that situation. Let me give you another example. And this is out of the Bible. Many of you familiar with the Bible. You do reading, and or at least casually, or you study. Some combination of all, I'm sure. You know the story about when Jesus went to dinner with the Pharisees. And he was in there, and the Pharisees didn't know really what to do with him. They didn't like him because they didn't trust him, because they didn't understand him. His disciples were there too. And it was a meal, and in came a woman by the name of Mary. You guys know the story? And she came up behind Jesus, and she poured perfume on his feet. And then she wiped them with her with her hair. She was crying, but she took her hair and she wiped Jesus' feet. Judas, one of the disciples, what a waste of money. What a waste of money for that perfume. We could have used that money to have done something with it. And she had an alabaster jar that she kept the perfume in. In her world, she was a prostitute. That perfume was very, very valuable to her because she needed the perfume to entice the people as part of the being the prostitute. She needed it. And so when she came in with the alabaster jar, it was a big jar. And she broke that jar and took all of the perfume that she could get and put it on Jesus' feet. Do you know what that meant? Do you know what she was doing? I quit. I quit being a prostitute. I've turned my life around. I've turned it over. I'm not that anymore. And she believed that Jesus was just who he said that he was, just who it appeared that he was. And so she went to the effort. She wiped his feet with her hair. And that's what she did. And Jesus heard what the disciples said. He heard what the Pharisees were whispering about her. Does he not know? Does this guy not know who that is? That's a prostitute. And Jesus said, I tell you, as many times as the Gospels are repeated, what you have done for me will be repeated. I just repeated it. You've read it in your own Bible. You know that story, and you know that that story is true. And that's exactly what happened. Do you know who that woman was? Who it is believed that she was? Do you know anybody? Anybody? Who Mary was? Who?
Isn't that Lazarus' sister?
Yes. Yes, Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene and Martha and Lazarus. And if Jesus had a spot, you guys all have a spot you can go to somewhere, whether it's a good friend or whether it's back home when you go back home. You all have a spot you can go to, and I can throw myself on the couch and I can be myself, and I don't have to put on a show for anybody. Jesus was in that sort of a relationship with Lazarus, Martha, and Mary. And Mary was the woman, by all likelihood, who did just what I said. He loved them. He loved them. And she changed her whole life because of Jesus. And you know the story about Lazarus. You already know the story about Lazarus and his death. And Jesus is a few miles away, about 3 miles away, when he gets the word that Lazarus is very, very ill. He's in Jerusalem. And the disciples said, maybe we should go back to him. No, not yet. Jesus already knew what happened, and he knew what was going to happen. And he didn't go back. And so when he decides to go back, Mary and Martha, because that's their brother, he'd been dead for 4 days and placed in the tomb, wrapped in the tomb. Now when they put you in the tomb then, just like with the crucifixion with Jesus, they put strips of cloth over you, and they put like what we would call plaster. And so you're bound in these strips of cloth with plaster on it. Very heavy. And he'd been in there 4 days. Well, Mary and Martha each go out to see Jesus. And the first time with the conversation, you know, the Bible says, had you have been here, this wouldn't have happened. You know what it really sounded like? Had you have been here, this would not have happened. My brother wouldn't be dead. Meaning, we're friends. You love Lazarus. You love us. And you didn't come back. Now, that's not all in the Bible. It's put down to, had you have been here, this wouldn't have happened. And then the second sister, the same thing. And so, just like was mentioned before, Jesus cried. He wept here. Shortest verse in the Bible. Just like the last speaker said. Jesus felt emotion. And he did. He felt emotion. And so Jesus said, well, didn't I tell you that he will live? Yeah, I know. I got all of that. When the last days he'll be resurrected. We got all of that. But you know, they were hurt because they were friends. Had you have been here, this wouldn't have happened to him. But he wasn't there. So Jesus goes out to the tomb. And there's lots of people who are there. And Jesus says, roll the stone away. Jesus. If you roll the stone away, he's been dead for 4 days. There's a horrible smell out of here because his body is deteriorating. Decomposing. And so he says, roll it away. Lazarus, come out. And he comes out wearing all of these cloths. Now, is that awesome? Do you believe that happened? Do you believe it? Yes, so do I. If Jesus can do that, he's no different now than he was before. We have so many amazing stories. I could share many of them with you. And I probably will share a couple of them with you. Even though I'm a judge, I understand. I understand because I have been where the criminals have been. I understand. When I was 5 years old, 6 years old, my dad got killed in a construction accident. Never saw that coming. Had no clue that that would happen. There was 4 of us, 4 kids. And my youngest sister was 6 months, then I was 6, my brother was 9. My other brother was coming up on 14. And we had a single mom. Mom was a stay-at-home mom. And my dad had 2 airplanes that he kept in a hangar. He had a brand new car. It was 1953. We had a television was just coming out. We had a great big circular television. We still have it. We still have that television. Great big circular television. It sits in my shop now because it's many years old. It's been tore apart. But I can remember that television. And on that particular night, we were watching the news out of Wichita. And a little kid getting ready for supper. About time for Dad to come home. And all of a sudden on the television comes out a Marion man. We were living in Marion at the time. My dad was in construction business, so we would move around a lot. A Marion man was killed today in Wichita at Boeing, at the airfield that was being built. That's what he was doing. Was killed today in an accident. And so we're looking at it. Carlisle E. Thompson was killed today. And that was our dad. And so we're watching the television, and that's what happened. And it came out, and it was like, never saw that one coming. Never, I didn't know that could even happen when I was 6 years old. And I remember, of course, the chaos in the family, and Mom, and, everybody, and I couldn't believe it. And over a short period of time, the airplanes were lost. My mom didn't have business sense in that area. She didn't pay the storage bill. We didn't have the money to pay the storage bill. So the airplanes were lost. Sold the 53 Buick because that was a brand new car. We didn't need a new car, couldn't afford it. And my oldest brother, who was just starting the 8th grade, he said, I'll quit school. I'm going to quit school. And he took a job working at the golf course in Marion, taking care of the greens. He took a job doing the trash truck. He took a job at night working in the bowling alley because they didn't have automatic pin setters. You set up on a shelf and you picked it, and that's what he did. And so he gave up his 8th grade on so that we could survive. On the weekends, me and my older brother and my oldest brother, the 3 of us would go down to the river. We lived by the river. And we would go down and we would seine in the river for minnows to sell, to have enough money to go on and survive. We didn't know we were poor. I didn't know we were poor. I guess my brother Don did, but me and Roger didn't, my next oldest brother. We didn't know we were poor because Mom never said we're poor. Somehow, some way, she always took care of us. I don't know how. I don't know how that happened. But we lost that guidance of a father who helped keep us in check. And so pretty soon, my mom remarried, and we moved over to Junction City on a farm. And my stepfather was older. He 4 kids coming in there was a mess. He didn't have, but that's the way that it was. So we were on a farm. And so what we started doing on the farm was, after we worked on the farm, we were like farm hands. And my stepfather, nice man, no problem, never was physically abusive to me or to any of the others. But he had no relationship. He just didn't, if there was 5 words said throughout the day, that was about it. And that's okay. I get that. I'm all right with that. I understand it. And so there was no interaction there. But after my brother and I would finish working, we always had an old car. And we would get out there on those dirt roads, and we would run a 10-mile section. If you go around the sections, if you ever live out in the country, you can go 10 miles around and you come back to where you started from. And so we would get in there and we would race that old car around there 10 miles. And we'd come back, and that was a lot of fun. And we never realized it, but as we were racing that car as fast as we could, the neighbors, as we would come up on somebody in a still night in the middle of Kansas, in the heat of the summer, that old car, you could hear it coming. And we would come along that road doing 80, 90, whatever it was. And there would be these neighbors would be pulled off over in the ditch, and we'd drive by, and my brother and I would look at each other. So what's the matter with them? How come what did they go down for? Well, they were scared. They were getting out of the way. And we would run that. As we got a little bit older, we got a second car, so now we started racing. I had the privilege of totaling out 2 cars before I was 12. Totaled out 2 cars before I was 12. We didn't have seat belts in them, and we didn't wear helmets. And so, as the time went on, what happened to us next was they built a racetrack about 1.5 miles from us. And so the very first day they were having races, my brother and I were racing our bicycles. And we go racing up, and we said, we'll go up to the racetrack. And I said, well, how are we going to get in? We don't have any money. Well, we'll sneak up the back way. We'll figure this out. We'll sneak up the back way. So we're flying down this hill, very steep hill. And my brother had worked on my bike a little bit earlier. He had the front wheel on. And so we put it back on, but he can get it tight. And so I'm flying down the hill, and I'm a little bit ahead of him. And coming up the road, here comes a guy in a convertible with his family out on a Sunday drive. My wheel comes off, and that's about all I remember till I was in the back of this guy's car, and he took me back home. And I was cut up, and I didn't have any broken bones, but I had rock chips and still have scars from it all over me. And he took me back home. Well, as it turns out, it was my doctor. It was Dr. Alex Scott out of Junction City with his family. And he was out on a Sunday cruise, and look what happened to him. And so we went on back, but over a period of time, I recovered from it. And over a period of time, what happened was we said, okay, let's go up to that racetrack and watch. And pretty soon we started going to the racetrack and watch. And then my brother said, I think I can do this. I think I can drive. And we started hounding our uncle to let my brother drive. And Roger let me drive. And he had a salvage yard over in Adelaide. And he had some guy driving his car, and Roger said, I can do better. And Roger was like 14. And he kept hounding him and hounding him. And so my Uncle Monk, as we know him, and my mom were brothers and sisters. We're brothers and sisters. They're both gone now. But so what happened was, Monk said to my mom, he said, let's just put him in the car, and we'll be done with this because he won't be able to do it. And he'll be scared, and we'll be done with all of this hassling about driving the car. So he says, you'll have to sign the release, Barbara. That's my mother. So Barbara signed the release to let a 14-year-old kid get out on a racetrack and drive. And so the very first night out, Roger started dead last. He goes right through the car, bouncing them everywhere. The sport was pretty new to the area. They didn't realize how bad he was driving. He just plowed them out of the way, and he won the race. So then that was the trophy dash comes along. He wins the trophy dash. There's a 14-year-old kid gets out of the car with the trophy girl. In those days, you mauled the girl, And then in the feature, he wins the feature. And so he got the job. So he starts racing. Well, right behind him, here comes 12-year-old me. And I said, well, my brother can do this. I can do this. So I start racing race cars too at a later time. And then pretty soon, we just got better at it. And we just got better at it. And my brother drove sprint cars. And I drove late models. And we raced everywhere. Everywhere. And it wasn't unusual. As time went on, we would race in Nebraska, in Oklahoma, Missouri, Colorado, everywhere that we wanted to race. And we were very successful at it. And as time went on, I went on to law school, got my law degree, and I was an attorney. And, you know, things were going really, really well. And I said, this is pretty cool, but I wasn't walking with the Lord. I knew who He was, but I wasn't walking with Him. And so, you know, I was in those other habits. That the alcohol was there. We would go racing. I had a big pit crew, so I didn't drink before we raced, but after we were done racing, and we were generally somewhat successful. So, you know, on the way back, we would drink, and time went on like that, and that was a lot of fun. And then I said, I need to get into some business ventures. So I've always been into some sort of business. So I bought a place. Me and 3 buddies bought a place over in Junction. It was a nightclub. It used to be a meat locker. And we got the idea. They called me one day and said, hey, when you get done with work, come on by. Well, we're down here at this locker plant. Okay? So I go down there, and the 3 buddies are there, and they say, let's buy this and make a club out of it. Well, okay, let's do it. So we bought the place and we made a club. And the place was absolutely packed. I mean, it started from the time we opened the doors, that place was packed. I was making a small fortune in there. And I said, well, this is pretty good. I think I'll start a liquor store. So I built a liquor store over in Abilene so that I could fill the place up with liquor from me. So I could, you know, my little liquor store in Abilene, and I could haul the booze over to Junction City. And that was very profitable too. So this is good. This is good. Well, didn't take too long, and we were making really, really good money. And you know what the name of the place was? Do you know what it was? The name of the place was The Devil's Tail. That was the name of it, The Devil's Tail. And we made so much money from it, eventually we bought a limousine and to get the drunks home. You know, and some of them that didn't have licenses, we'd pick up and bring down to the club, and they would spend all their money down in the club, and then somebody would haul them home. Well, this was pretty good for a while, but we kind of got bored with that after a while. So, well, now what can we do? Well, let's bring strippers in. So we started going to Topeka and picking up strippers and bringing strippers back. And you know what? Those people were used. They were the same people that we're talking about right here. The example that I used there with the sex. They were, you know, they thought nothing of themselves. And it was because nobody else thought anything of them. And so we started doing that. And then over a period of time, my wife and I have been married 25 years, but we weren't married then. And she knew I was getting close to asking her to marry me. And she went to some of the races with me, and she liked racing locally. She liked it. It was fun. And but I knew that I wanted to ask her. And she knew that too. And she said, Doug, I want to tell you something. So she was beating me to the punch. I want to tell you something, Doug. I love you. I said, I love you too, Connie. But there will never be an us. I said, why not? And she said, because the man I'm married got to be walking with the Lord. And you're not. You're not there. And I said, I understand. And so, you know, I was starting to make that transition. I wasn't a kid then anymore. I started to make that transition. And so one night I got all the pit crew together. There were maybe 20 people on the pit crew. And I was a mess. I was a mess. I mean, there wasn't the girls that was safe, and owning the bar, we could race in Lincoln, Nebraska. We could come back, it'd be 3 in the morning. I could go up to my own bar, shut the door off, shut the alarm off, and we could go in, we could party till 6 or 7 in the morning. And that wasn't a problem. And you know, I wasn't a drunk. I was able to, I would get drunk, but I mean, I didn't miss work, and I wasn't hungover often over that. And so I was still doing my job and doing it fine. I wasn't the judge then yet, I was an attorney. And so, you know, I got to looking about it as I started going back to church. And I started going back to church because I played basketball with a pastor. We played noon ball. And one day when we finished playing ball, his name was Tal Titsworth. And I said, Tal, I didn't know what he did. And I said, Tal, what do you do? And he said, I'm a pastor. You're a pastor? And he said, yeah. I said, you got the worst language out here. You cheat on the scores. And he said, I know, I got a lot to be sorry for. And I said, where are you a pastor at? And he told me. So I went over to his church for a while. And then, you know, it started coming back to me because my mom always made me go to church when I was a kid. I had Bibles from attending every time. But you know how it is. You go sit through it. Okay, it's over. I'm out of here. I didn't get anything out of it because I didn't bring anything into it. And so over a period of time, I started to walk with the Lord. I got all the pit crew together. And I said, let me tell you something. I said, we've had tremendous success. We won the Nationals championship. You know, when we won the first nationals championship we were in, you know what we did afterwards? We went to the first bar and we all got drunk. I didn't give the glory to the Lord. And so I said, we've had a lot of luck, but I said, I'm taking all of it the wrong direction. And they were looking at me like I'm crazy. I said, we're all going to hell. What are you talking about? I said, we're all going to hell, and you're following me. And that's where we're going. I'm taking you to the wrong spot. And so I told them what we're going to do. I said, I'm done with the cooler of beer. I'm done with it. Don't eat it. And I said, we'll go racing. We'll do all these things. And if you want to go, then that's what we're going to do. Sold my club. Sold my interest in the club. And got rid of my liquor store. Got rid of those things. And the Lord got a hold of me. And he started by the nape of the neck. And he said, you see the ladder up there, Doug? You see that ladder that slipped in here? Get on it. Get on it. I don't care if you fall off. You get back up and you get on it. And I did. And I kept getting on the ladder. And I'd go up further. And I don't remember many slips back to the sewage, but I can remember a couple of slips on the wrong. And then going back up, I started looking up. And I kept looking up to him. And pretty soon I was out of that. I lost my pit crew. We were down to 2 or 3 people because it wasn't any fun anymore. The fun was gone. It was work. And we still raced and we had success. And my transition ended. I was going through spiritual warfare, and I kept telling the team. It was in 1992, and we were going through spiritual warfare. They didn't understand it. Every time we would get into a race, every time we were right at the end of the race, and we were going to win it, and something would happen to the car. You know, something would happen to the car. And things can happen, but this wasn't that. I had a plaque from the time I started racing, and on the dash of my car, it said, the net return from any venture is directly proportionate to the effort put forth. Doug Thompson. That was my motto that I put on. And when we would win, I would get out in victory lane, and I would tap that, and the crew knew what I was talking about. Because we worked hard, we won. And if we didn't do good, I would get out, and I would tap that, and they knew that we hadn't worked hard, and we didn't win. So as time went on, we went to the spiritual warfare was going on in 1992. The night before the Nationals Championship, I raced in our own track. My brother and I own a racetrack called Whiskey Lake over at Junction City. And we raced in our own track. Big lead, last corner, coil wire comes off, something that would never happen. We load back up into the truck and take the car back to the shop. Nobody said a word. I was not in the mood for it. And nobody said a word. And if anybody had cleared their throat, I would have probably jumped all over them. I was so irritated. And I got back to the shop, put the car away, and I don't know how I knew this, but I knew what Satan wanted. He wanted me to take the Lord's name in vain. It wasn't like I hadn't done that before when I was a wild child, but that's what he wanted from me. I don't know how I knew it, but I knew that's what he wanted, and he didn't get it. And I picked up a metal chair and I smacked it over the left front fender of the car. And then I threw that across the shop and said, I'm going home. I said, I am tired, and I'm going home, and I'm not going to the Nationals Championship tomorrow. I'm not going to do it. And they crew, oh no, you got to go. We won that, and and all. I said, I'm going home. I'm done. This is too much temptation. So I went home and went on to bed. And about 6 in the morning, the 2 guys on the pit crew called me. Said, we worked all night on this car, and it's ready to go. And nothing can go wrong. And we want you to go. And I argued about it and said, no, I'm not going. And eventually I finally said, fine, pick me up, but we won't have any luck. We go down to the Nationals. I start dead last in the heat race. They have passing points. So I did good in that. And now we're starting in the second row of the feature. And I've been going through spiritual warfare. And I just know that's what we're going to have. I'm sitting there. It's a televised race. The stadium is full of people. And I remember, sometimes the only break you get when you're the driver is in the car. So I'm sitting in the car watching everything that's going around. And I bowed my head and I flipped the visor up and I said, Lord, I know what Satan wants. You know what he wants. He hasn't got it from me, Lord. Just let me drive this race on my own ability without any interference from him. Amen. That's all I said. Put the visor down, we pulled out on the track. The very first lap comes up, I get the lead. And I'm in the lead. There's 36 cars behind me. It's a concrete wall all the way around the half-mile track. Televised race. The second corner, when I come off on the second lap, my accelerator goes to the floor. Because the last thing my crew chief guy said the night before was, he said, nothing can go wrong. We even put a double spring mounted in different spots on the carburetor. Now, for you guys, you don't know what I'm talking about. When you let off the gas pedal, when you leave here and you let off at the stop sign, the gas pedal comes back to you. And in my car, I had double springs mounted so that it would come back so I could control it. But that's not what happened. And so, as I come off the corner, I feel the accelerator go to the floor. It's stuck to the floor. Yeah, and I'm in the lead. There's 36 cars behind me. And I can see the concrete wall coming up, so I've got to do something before I get to the next corner, or it's going to be a huge disaster. It's televised, so I have to begin to look for places on the infield that might be a clear spot where there aren't cars and humans or camera people. I see a spot up there. I say, okay, when I get to here, I'm going to shut that switch off and I'll spin this car in there backwards. And I can do that. And so I said, I'll spin this back in there. About the time I go to reach for that switch to shut it off, the accelerator comes back, and I go through the corner, and it goes to the floor again without my foot. And I immediately knew what happened. The Lord said, Doug, I'm going to do just what you said. He didn't care if I won or lost that race. He could care. I knew he could care less. But what he did do, Satan knocked those springs off, and the Lord worked the accelerator. We go through the next corner, and the next corner, and it goes to the floor real quick. And I remember saying to myself, I said, Lord, normally I would feather this car. I would feather this car through that area a little more than you did. And it was just as if I could hear him say, well, Doug, my reflexes are a little better. And I just sort of smiled. And we ran that whole race without me on the accelerator. And we won the race. And when I got out of the car, the accelerator stuck to the floor. So when the race is over, and I have to pull up to get on the scales and go through inspection, the car is just screaming. So I have to keep it shutting off and blowing up the engine. And so I shoot forward, and I get out of the car, and the crew said, what are you doing? And I said, the accelerator stopped. Well, how can that be? And I told them the story. Well, right over by me over here, on the other side of the car, is the camera. And so the guy hears the story. And so the announcer comes over, and he said, what happened? And I said, I won this race by divine intervention. And so I told him the story. They televised it. And then Christian Motorsports picked it up, and they did an article that we have hanging in the museum, because we own the Kansas Auto Racing Museum. And that ended the spiritual warfare, because God did just what I asked. And so when people say, you really think that God can happen? Yes. Yes, He's around. You folks will have the opportunity, as you talk to each of these people, because I don't know how anybody could make it unless they start with the center circle fire. If you start with that and you build everything on that, the rest of the problems take care of themselves. Because I haven't seen very many people who can get out of it. I've seen determined people who will say, I will leave the drugs alone. And they may be determined to do it. And they may for a while. But it just doesn't work that way unless you bring it together with basing it upon the Lord. Now, nobody's had any questions so far. Do you have any questions? Because I can go. Remember, I did the prison for 3 hours. I can do quite a bit. If you have anyone, just raise your hand and ask the question. We'll go through it. Meeting last night. The meeting last night in Play Center, I told you about what happened, how the woman said, I was my dad's mistress from the age of 2 to the age of 12. Another person got up and spoke, and she works with DCF, the family. And she told me, she told everybody there, she said, in Topeka last year, we got 122 people out of sex trafficking. Just Topeka last year, 122 people that system was able to get out of. And you folks will be in a much better position than that system to get them out of it. As I'm in juvenile court, I see families that this is my family. My mom beats me up. She beats me up. And if she doesn't beat me up, she's got a live-in boyfriend, and then another live-in boyfriend, and another one, and they abuse me because they don't want me around. And here's a little kid that's now dealing with that's in a foster home. And there's so much pain. There is so much pain across this world. But you know, it's been here all of the time because this is a fallen world. There isn't anything that I'm telling you that you don't already know. And you folks will be in position to help those folks. And I know that every one of you in here will talk to them and you'll say to them, just get off the alcohol. And it's like I tell my own daughter. I said, you know what? Satan doesn't knock on your door wearing a red suit with a pitchfork behind him. He knocks on your door, and he's blonde-haired, blue-eyed, blue jeans, and that's what he is. And it's temptation. And that's what it's about. You've got to be wise about yourself. And I don't know how you reach everybody, but you do the best that you can. But if it doesn't start with something like here, I don't care where it starts, as long as it's right here with the Lord. I've had people who, recently we had a healing service over in Abilene at our church. I had a young girl come in, and she sat clear at the back in the corner, which tells you something. She sat there back by herself, and I saw her, and she saw me. I put her in jail, I'll bet 7 times over the years. And she was sitting back there, and she was crying. And she's a tough girl. She's a tough girl, physically tough girl, emotionally tough girl. She was broken. And she sat back there. I went over and put my arms around her, and we talked. And, she wasn't really receptive to it. She didn't, it's kind of like, I'm embarrassed to be here. But I wanted to, but I don't know why. And I went over and put my arm around her. And I said, are you going to go forward up here, and you're going to go up and talk to the pastor when that opportunity? Yeah, I'm going. Do you want me to go up with you? No, I want to do it on my own. Okay. She went on up, and then she left. I haven't seen her since. I don't know if she'll make it or not. I had a guy that come to court, he would not mind if I told you. If he was here, he would tell you this same story. His name's Thomas Moore out of Abilene. And he beat up his wife. And he came in front of me, and I put him in jail. I put him in jail because he did it a second time. And he used to come over, and he come into my court, and he would sit back there by himself. I didn't recognize him because I see so many people. But he came in, and he would sit back, and I would say at the end of the night, at the end of the docket, I said, sir, can I help you? I'm just here watching. Okay, fine. Pretty soon he had my staff a little bit nervous, because some guy just coming in with nothing else to do but watch court. And he was mad, and he was angry. And pretty soon I didn't see him anymore. Well, I spoke at a church one day, right next to the Seeley Mansion in Abilene. And I'm sitting at the back just like I was here, I was sitting at the back. And the guy, the usher who's introducing me, before he introduces me, he said, well, let's stand and greet your neighbor. And so, I stand, and the guy a couple rows ahead of me, well, he sticks his hand out, shakes my hand, and he says, do you remember me? No, I don't. And he said, well, you should. You put me in jail. And I said, well, let me tell you, I didn't put you in jail. You put yourself in jail. And I thought, boy, this is going to be a fun sermon. and so I did the sermon that day, and we talked, and he stands up when I finish, and he said, I want to tell all of you folks in here, you know me. He said, I want to tell you something. I hated this man. I hated him because he put me in jail. And he said, but then after I started coming back to court, and I saw what he was trying to do and what he had in mind for me. And he said, I started coming to church. I got to know the Lord. And he said, my wife and I got back together. And he said, we had 3 good years before she died of cancer. And he said, my heart's broken. My heart's broken. But he said, it was because of what I did putting him in jail and his anger that brought him back that led him to the Lord. Now that's awesome. That's awesome. It's one of my better stories. And I love the fact that he shares that because he was a broken man. He was just like the prisoners out at the prison. They were crying, and they're tough guys. But they were physically crying because they knew. And now they had the chance to know the Lord. And if you guys have read the scripture, you know one of the things that the Lord says is reach out. Reach out for those prisoners. And it means extend the hand. That's what each and every one of you are called to do. Some of you are very young. You may be dealing with people that are older. And don't misunderstand. Many of those people will be able to use you by saying, I'm just the victim. I'm always the victim in here. And you need to do something to help me. And you go back home and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're laying there thinking, I'm not doing a very good job. I'm not doing it. They may be playing because they may not realize that the ladder's right there in front of them and they're in the sewage. They just may not know it. And so you have to deal with some of those situations. I don't like putting people in jail, but sometimes I put them in jail because I said, we tried your treatment program, we tried this, you won't do it, you can't do it, you haven't done it, so here's what we'll do. We'll do my treatment program. What is that? You'll do 60 days in jail. you'll do 60 days in jail. And then when you get out, let's see where you go from there. I don't like doing that to them, because I would want to be the one in jail, but I don't have much choice. If the ladder's there and you won't get out of the sewage and get on the ladder, then where does it go? Where do you go with it from there? So all you can do is the very best you can, and just be wise. Use wisdom, but you get yourself. You get yourself so that you're walking with the Lord, and that you can share that message. Because I don't know any other way to get out. I don't know of any other way to do it. And you know, a while back, Deb came over, and her and I did a show with our BDS, did it at our studio over there. And we did, and it's called Stories That Matter. She did an awesome job. And I wish you could have heard, and maybe you have, I wish you could have heard the words that she said about how strong her heart is for these people that are lost. And how much she wants those people to have the relationship with the Lord. Because remember, there's two types of people. Those who are already dead, and those of us who will be dead. That's a guarantee. There is an exception to that. But then from there, that's where the options start, depending upon what you do. Every one of you folks, you wouldn't be sitting in here on a Friday night if you didn't want to make a difference for people. You wouldn't be here. Those chairs would be empty. And it feels like I've sat through 3 hours of this stuff. I don't know as though I've learned anything. You have. You just have to absorb it. And you just do it, and you do a good job for these people. Deb, I've used up all my words today.
I have a question.
Okay.
So there's a saying, and even among the gals we work with, that everybody becomes a Christian in prison.
Yeah.
Or everybody becomes a follower of Christ in jail.
Yep.
And so, can you speak to that a little bit?
I can, and I have, in some fits of anger, I will say that. So one of three things always happen. You find family, you find the Lord, and you find a job. That's what happens. Because what got you up here, I don't have any job, haven't paid fines, not doing this, and now when you get in here, I love the Lord, I'm going to church now. Okay. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I have the opportunity to say, well, I'll tell you what, I'll review your case again in this period of time, and we'll see how you're doing. And usually it all comes out. It all comes out. Once in a while, I see some that change, but a lot of them roll those words out, and you don't necessarily know from where I am. I just have to go with the gut feeling. I found the Lord. And sometimes I will say, not being a smart aleck about it, well, the Lord will be with you in jail then. He'll be with you. So, there you go. And I'm not being smart about it. That's just the truth. And sometimes you can sit in there, and if you're truly looking for the Lord, you're reading and studying, and that's the most strength you're going to give as opposed to sitting and watching television somewhere. You guys got any other questions? I'll be happy to answer any of them. I just want to leave you with the idea that you know how important you are in the sequence of being able to help other people, and how frustrating it can be to you. And I could go through sex trafficking, but I don't need to. Many of you will have a better handle on that. I can tell you what to look for. You know the same thing. Don't put the blinders on. Just be wise about it. And tell it. There's the ladder. Just get on it. Just get out of the sewage. Just get out of it and get on the ladder. That's where you have to start. And that ladder means it goes up to the Lord. And the Lord's standing right there. Give me your hand. Give me your hand. I'm holding right here for you. This past Easter, we have a sunrise service that we do in Abilene. I was a Roman soldier. I got to crucify Jesus. I crucified him. And as we did the rehearsals, here's what I found about it. I became task-oriented. I wasn't concerned with his pain. I was task-oriented about getting him crucified into that tomb, that we did it on time, that we fit with what we had to do. I became task-oriented. And it is very easy to lose apathy, to don't feel the other person's pain. You don't want to get that way. I had to step back from it and regroup, and I said, I'm crucifying Jesus. That really happened to him. We didn't crucify anybody here, but it really happened to him. That's what happened. Now, I sent over a couple of songs. Are those any there that can be? Or is that not possible?
You ready for them?
Yeah, I think I am. I'm going to share two songs with you, and I'll tell you the story after the first one. The first one's Crowder. You guys know it better than me. I like Crowder because I like the words in this. So you listen, if that's the first one up, it is. Where will it be? Okay.
Right there.
I'll get out of the way and we'll visit after this one. Believe that. I've been washed by the blood. And he doesn't see my sins. They're forgiven. I remember my sins in my weak time. But if I really think about it, I've been washed. He doesn't see them. And all of those people that you folks will come across, they have the same opportunity. The same as I did, the same as each of you did. The next one we're going to do, this is called Take My Hand, Precious Lord. The guy that wrote that song, Precious Lord, his wife was pregnant, and he was invited to St. Louis to come up, and he really needed to go to St. Louis because they were getting the gospel music going. And he didn't really want to go because his wife was about ready for delivery. He left to go up to St. Louis. He got a bad feeling. He went right back home. And he went in and checked on his wife. And she was okay. She said, well, you go ahead. You go on. I'll be fine. And he went on to St. Louis. And by the time he got to St. Louis, he got a message. His wife died. And so he hustled right back home. And he got back in time. She had given birth and she died during childbirth. And he got to hold his son. He got to hold that child. And that child died that very night. And he wrote this song, Precious Lord, Take My Hand. And you know, most of the songs, Mike Crowder has a story about his song. The guy with Precious Lord, Take My Hand. And that's what he was feeling. Take my hand, precious Lord, take me home. You listen to this song. I can't imagine the pain. I can't imagine the pain he was feeling. There's one other thing that I can help you with. Deb has my contact information. So if you're working with somebody and you feel like, man, the judge just isn't, I don't understand. The attorney's not doing what he should do. Or the client's just, the person I'm working with, I'm just not connecting here. You just let Deb know. She'll call, I'll call you back. I'll visit with you. I'll help you walk through it. Sometimes I'll even come over. I'll call the attorney sometime and I'll say, here's what's going on behind the scenes. And sometimes I prepare stuff that works for me. Somebody that comes in and owns it. Somebody comes in and says, I screwed up. I really made a mistake. But I'm really not like that. Here's what I got going in my life. Man, I'll do 100% to go to bat with you as a judge. I'll give you the chance. Let's make it through this. I'll take the heat if somebody is, how come she didn't go to jail? Because it's my call. And that's the end of that conversation. But it can happen. And somebody that comes up and, don't give a blank attitude, then, they just go, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. No, whatever. I got nothing going. You can work with what you had to work with. You guys have been great. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug, for sharing. He has been a great resource to us when we have called him when girls are having legal issues. He's stepped up. And that story that he shared about, I think it was Thomas, he was directing him and he was having to punish him, and finally Thomas saw what Doug's purpose was and all of that, and he was pointing to the Lord and wanted the best for him. And I think of that with all of the girls that we work with, when they're not ready maybe to choose the Lord yet or choose what's right, the things we're saying to them or the discipline or decisions that Deb or the staff is making, that's our prayer that we should have for them, that they do eventually see, because that's what we want for them. We want them to step towards the Lord and step towards just moving forward and growing. And we start back up here tomorrow at 9 a.m. So we'd love to have you all back. So I'll pray for us and we can all head out and get rested up. So. Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you for being present here with us. Both Brianna and Doug have made it clear tonight through their experiences of working with people that you're the only way to true healing, or that you make changes in people's lives that are impossible otherwise. And so because of that fact, Lord, I just pray that you would help each one of us to draw near to you. so that we can be better equipped to work along the survivors that you bring to the homestead. Lord, I just pray that as we think about the experiences in Doug's life that he shared and the things that Brianna told us, Lord, that you would help us to just internalize that and see how we can use that as we're ministering to the homestead ladies and just ministering to people. Lord, it just makes me just crazy excited how you have given us all different passions and different just gifts and experiences in life, and so we each can be a part of this ministry in different ways. Thank you for using us. Thank you for the life change that you are doing in women's lives here through the homestead. Lord, we pray for just safety as we drive home and then coming back no matter what the weather is tomorrow. God, I just pray that we would come back with minds just ready and open to learn. Lord, may you just be glorified. Maybe even grow closer to you during this time of training. And we love you in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all for coming. Have a good night.